Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to class 3 of our Bodhi Tree Buddhism community. We are this week up to week 3 of our classes on Karma and Insight, Study and Meditation. Our focus for this course, which we're going to have 8 classes in total, is we are going to look at classic meditation text, often known as Karma and Insight. It's a Chinese text. Chinese usually gets called 小止观, the smaller text on Karma and Insight. And while it comes from the Chinese Tiantai tradition, its contents are really a very good and a really excellent overview of Buddhist meditation in general. So for those of you that have been with us for a couple of weeks, we are now up to week 3. So we are this week heading into the topic of eliminating the hindrances to meditation. But for those of you that have maybe not been with us so far, this is maybe your first week, welcome along as well. And it's okay that you've joined us at this point. We are still going through kind of some of the basic theories, some of the basic ideas that we need to know before we can really properly engage in meditation practice. And then as we're looking at the text, we're also then bringing in some basic meditation practices as well. So I'm trying to hit this kind of a sweet spot between looking at a text in some detail, but also providing a nice platform for those that are really new to meditation, or not just kind of new, not necessarily beginners, but it's also very important even for those with experience to sometimes just go back to the basics and make sure we can go through all of those sort of basic steps, refamiliarize ourselves with them, because it's always important to have that kind of foundation. Okay, I see we've got a couple of people online. We've got Kunjing, who I think is coming to us from over US side. We've also got Terry there from the Philippines with her group. So Terry there is with the whole meditation group community that they've got there, so welcome along to all of you. Anyone else who's also joining with us, I can see we've got, according to the little Facebook live screen, I've got a little eyeball, and then we've got 9 people. So I know there's some more people out there as well. So if you've joined us, just drop a little message in on the side. Let me know who you are, where you're coming from, because it's great to see everyone come along and join us. As you might have noticed already, as promised from last week, we've got a few little changes to the kind of technical side of things. So what I've been doing basically is giving myself a crash course and doing this kind of live streaming and these sorts of online classes. And on one side, I managed to get some slightly better hardware. So we've got a new camera. That's the camera that we're using right now. And I've also set it up with my other old camera as well. And we're running all these things through some software, OBS, I think it's called Open Broadcasting Software or something like that. And it lets me pull in all these different threads and combine them together. And you might have noticed right at the very start, I've got a little opening scene, and then I can sort of cut between different cameras. And in a second, when we get into the text reading, you'll be able to see that I can now put up the actual text, and we can have the text on the screen to sort of follow along. So you don't need to flip backwards and forwards between the PDF file and and the video, for example. Okay, so we've got a couple of other people. I've got Chantel there from Vancouver. I see last time I saw you was, I think, in Australia. So I guess you're back home now. Good to see Chantel there, that you've joined us. And Mika as well. Okay, quite improved picture quality. Well, thank you. Yes, that's the hardware coming to us. We've also got Sean there. Mariella from North Carolina in the US, and Tina there from China as well. Okay, good to see everyone. Glad you can join us. And Nathaniel. Okay, so it's also nice to see that after week 3, we've got a few people that are kind of coming along regularly. That's encouraging. Gives us a good sense that we can kind of really go step by step and progress. Okay, enough talk. So now if the software works right, I'm going to hit a button and then we are going to flip over and be able to see the text and a little headshot of mine on the top corner. Now, I think you should have, I'm pretty sure I've put in the link there for the text that we're looking at this week. I'm just going to drop that in again in the little messages there. So if you don't have chapter 3, go onto this page that I just sent in at Kalavinka, scroll on down to the text. It should be the essentials of meditation, calm and insight, and we're up to week 3, eliminating the hindrances. In the meantime, I'm going to flip on over and pull that up on the screen, okay? Hopefully it should work. Okay, hopefully that should be coming through in just a second. I'm just going to wait while it flips between the software and then what I've got on screen. Okay, that should be coming through now. So this is the file downloaded. As I've mentioned earlier, this comes from a translator by the name of Venerable Dharmamitra Heng Shou. His publishing house is kind of like his little DIY publishing house. He's a one-man publishing group. He does the translation and all the publishing. He does this work. He does some really good quality translations. And he's also got a lot of free stuff, a lot of free PDF files of essential Dharma teachings from the Chinese traditions. And so they're available for you there. But if you like, you can always zip into Amazon and get yourself a copy. They're not expensive. I think this is something like 10 or 15 US for a copy of this book. Okay, and when you get if you buy the actual paper version, you don't just get the English like what we've got here in the PDF. You get facing English and Chinese pages. So those of you that like to do maybe a bit more in-depth study, you are really keen on learning about Chinese Buddhism in particular, and you're maybe learning a bit of Chinese, that's really good because you can line them up and kind of teach yourself as you go. Okay, enough said. Let's get into what we've got this week. So this week is elimination of the hindrances. So if you recall from last week, it was renouncing the 5 desires. Okay, the week before, week 1, was setting up 5 prerequisites. So remember this, one of the nice things about the text, kind of 5, 5, 5. There's 5 sets of 5 at the beginning. So when we want to keep in mind, okay, what are my essentials of my meditation preparation? 5 sets of 5. 5 preconditions we need to set up. And then we get into, instead of working on the externals, then we get into some basic internal preparation. The first is renouncing, or kind of letting go of, detaching ourselves from the 5 types of sensory attachment and clinging, things we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, with our 5 external sense organs. And then this third set this week is then eliminating these 3 hindrances. And these 2 sets, eliminating the 5 desires and eliminating the hindrances to meditation, are really some of the basic essentials. If we can do this, fully and properly, we have essentially already set ourselves up to be able to enter into this basic meditative state. Well, it's referred to as the first dhyana or the first jhana. And if we look at the classical text, that's exactly how it's described. We might talk about some meditator going into the forest or going into wherever, into a cave or some place suitable for meditation. And they renounce the 5 desires and they eliminate the 5 hindrances. These are things that they've got to get rid of. And then they need to, basically, they have their minds directed towards and sustaining their attention upon their object of meditation, for example, their breath or their body, or their loving kindness, it might be a visualization or what have you. And with that applied and sustained focus, this inner kind of joy and happiness wells up, and they have this kind of clear one-pointedness of mind. Bam, if you can do that, you're essentially already into what's known as the first jhana state. So this is pretty important stuff, right? It's really like just core teachings on what is dhyana, what is this meditative state. And as I said, this doesn't just apply to this text, or doesn't just apply to Chinese Buddhism or the Tiantai school of Buddhism. This is something that you'll see throughout almost every tradition of Buddhism. So, looking at the text, as for the elimination of the hindrances, it refers to the 5 hindrances. Sanskrit word is nivarana or avarana. In Chinese, it's gai, wu gai, 5 literally coverings is the way it's translated in Chinese. So gai is like something that covers over, in the sense of that meditative state, that concentration that kind of can come forth, but this blocks it. So that's why it's called a hindrance or a cover or an obstruction. Okay, so what are these five? Now the very first one, the hindrance of desire, is, as it says in the text, the first involves the elimination of the hindrance of sensual desire. Earlier, we discussed the outward arising of desire with respect to the five sense objects. Now we are concerned with the inward arising of desire of the mind faculty. So normally we are distracted by things through our senses. We say, oh, that looks nice, or that looks good, or that sounds good, or that tastes good, right? So stimulating the five external senses. But as we might know if we're paying attention, if we stop doing that, so we stop looking around and stop letting our external senses wander after these pleasurable objects, but what happens? Our mind still has lots of other impressions and memories of those objects. We can still think about them. We can still daydream or fantasize about those objects. Right? You can sort of imagine, the thing that comes to mind is a Homer Simpson. Don't give him the ice cream, but he's just sitting there daydreaming about ice cream, drool coming out of his mouth, or something like that. Okay, so here we're then moving on to this more internal state. But even when we're talking about desire in the sense of the mental faculty, remember the mental faculty still includes memories and impressions of the other five senses. So we can remember with the mind experiences and things that we saw with our eyes or ears and so on and so forth. So this first of the hindrances, desire, is just very similar to what we talked about last week. So desire through the senses as held in the mind. And, if we're meditating and we're sitting there and we're thinking about those things, obviously we're not going to be focused, right? We're going to be caught up in that little daydream, that little fantasy. Okay, so that's the first one. It gives some reflection. So, what should the practitioner do in that case? And it gives an example. Subhakara, so this is an example from a classical text, an older sutra. As in the case of Subhakara, the internal arising from the lustful mind is able even to burn the body. How could it be that all wholesome dharmas would not be burned up as well when the mind generates the fire of desire? It's kind of like, here's a bit of a metaphor that desire is like a fire that burns up these otherwise wholesome states of mind that we might have. And it goes on to, again, give a little verse. All of the stories, not this week, it's the same as last week. All the little stories that the texts give are sort of shortened versions of when the same material is covered in that commentary on the perfection of wisdom. I think I mentioned that last week. There's a commentary on the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, and the Prajna Paramita, Chinese called Datu Dula. Big text, a lot of detail in it. It's really a huge text. And that was really important for the author of this text on karma and insight that we're looking at now. He really drew a lot of material from there. So this is like a shortened version of it. And that includes these verses here. And these verses are kind of like a little reflection. So if we get caught up in that state where we're just kind of letting the mind get caught up in that fire of desire, those mental states and attachments that we have, then these verses, the aim or the goal of these verses is to kind of generate within us that ability to kind of let these things go. Right? A person knowing shame and blame who's entered the path takes up his bowl and provides merit for beings. How could one give free rein to desires for sense objects and become immersed in the five senses? Okay, so here it's specifically talking about a monk or a nun, but we can apply ourselves, the same principle can apply to ourselves. We said, okay, we're going to practice on the path, and we're going to do this. It's meritorious for ourselves and for others. So, if we have that intention, then how can we just let ourselves get caught up in those desires? And that sense of knowing shame and blame, these are qualities whereby we reflect on ourselves and think, well, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm supposed to be a Dharma practitioner. I shouldn't let myself get caught up in that kind of attachment. That's the first one, the term shame and blame, Chinese Tan Kui. The second one is a sense of not just rejecting those from our own point of view, I shouldn't be doing that, but in the sense of look, if I do that, there are good people that would kind of scorn me. You might think about the classic example in text is like your teachers, for example, your Dharma teachers. How can you do that? And those of you that have practiced a bit more long term with a teacher like that will know that a good teacher will point out when we have these problems. Hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Why are you doing that? And then they should, of course, not just scold us, but sort of encourage us to make a change for the better and provide for that guidance. Then the second verse, and kind of is a bit like it's a metaphorical kind of reflection. So having already renounced the pleasures of the 5 desires, one has cast them off and does not look back. Why would one still desire to gain them like a fool who laps up his own vomit? Oh my God, that is a pretty gross metaphor there. But this is kind of the idea. The idea that the practitioner reflects on desires is something that are the sources of suffering. The 4 noble truths. First truth, suffering or dissatisfaction. And the second truth is the sources or the origins and causes of that suffering. And the big one is just attachment, craving. And so when we see that it's like a poisonous thing to us, it's a dangerous thing, we're going to purge ourselves on it, like vomit it up. And then we're going to go back and like eat our own vomit. Oh, that's like so disgusting. So that's kind of like the idea here. It's something that's bad for us. We're trying to purge it from us. Why would we then turn around and go back and then try to just like get involved in it again? Okay, so that's the first one, the first reflection. Some of the ways of reflecting upon these are similar for all 5. Okay, you don't have to like follow this verse, but it's a reflection to make you think like, yeah, why am I doing this, right? Like, why? I'm on the path. I need to set those things aside because I've got a higher goal to work on. Why do I then come back and just get involved in it again? Okay. The second one is ill will. So as from the text, the second is the elimination of the hindrance of ill will. Ill will is the basis for losing the Buddha Dharma, a cause and condition for falling into the wretched destinies, so bad rebirth. The nemesis of Dharma bliss, the great thief which preys on the wholesome mind, and the repository of all manner of abusive speech. Now, desire and ill will are kind of like opposites, but they're kind of not. I mean, they're both unwholesome. They're both hindrances and obstructions to our practice. But they're kind of opposite in the sense that usually desires come from when we have recollections of objects, for example, that cause pleasure, gained pleasure for us, we then have attachment towards it. But when we have recollections of things that caused pain for us, and suffering for us, then we respond usually with ill will. I sometimes translate this as kind of aversion. So on one side, pleasant things that we have desire and attraction towards, and on the other side, painful things that we have aversion towards. So in a way, they're kind of opposites, but in some ways, they're both still problems. They're both making the mind move either toward or away. And while the mind's being pushed and pulled like that, it's unable to be calm and settled and focused, which is what we want for a meditative state. So, whether you're pulling towards or pushing away, or left, right, up or down, whatever, that movement of the mind is essentially kind of the opposite of what we want to get for this concentration. Right? So that's why it's a hindrance. And it gives some other reasons, specifically why ill will or aversion is a problem. Sometimes when it's not mentioned here specifically, but there are other Dharma teachings that talk about these different fundamental kind of afflictions: craving and desire, aversion, ill will, and ignorance. And while they are all obstacles to practice, they're all hindrances, but there's also some differences in not just the kind of the methods and techniques we need to use to deal with them, but also there's some other problems too. One of the great difficulties with desire, and one of the reasons why desire is often mentioned, like first of all and foremost, is it's hard to let it go because it's desire towards things that we think are pleasurable. So it's kind of it's pleasurable. Well, why would I want to let it go? Now, aversion is a bit different. Because we don't like it, we do, in a sense, want to get away from it. One of the simplest ways, for example, is you have some falling out with someone, some personal issue with someone. It's like, if you just don't encounter them, you know. You're not going to deliberately go seek them out. Well, you might deliberately seek them out. Yeah, I mean, some people do. If it's bad enough, you want to seek them out to harm them. But if you're just going to like avoid them, like out of sight, out of mind, then you're not worried about it. But desire is not like that. You're constantly drawn towards it. So while the ill will and kind of like violence towards the object can be very sharp and very detrimental, but it tends to be shorter because we don't constantly put ourselves in the way of things that we have aversion towards. Whereas desire is kind of this more subtle and insidious. It's just even hard to separate ourselves from it, and because we're constantly putting ourselves together with things that we desire, it just stays. It just keeps on going. It's hard to give it up. So these two are the first two. Basic emotion. This is desire towards, aversion away, and both of these are creating a movement, which means that the mind can't kind of settle and be focused. Okay, but that's only 2 of 3. So which other ones do we have? Okay, very basically. The next one is the hindrance of lethargy and sleepiness. Okay, so lethargy and sleepiness. Stianamida. There's a couple of different terms for this in Chinese. Hunchen is one of the most common ones. It's this kind of really dull state of mind. If you have had, classic example when it comes to lethargy, sleepiness, or dullness, dimness of the mind when it comes to meditation. One might be, for example, say you do a retreat in the first session of the mornings at 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. You only just started the retreat, you feel you didn't get enough sleep the night before, or maybe your bed in the meditation hall is too hard or something, didn't sleep well, and you woke up, you just didn't have enough sleep. So what happens then when you sit down to meditate, right? You get the old dropping head. You'll see this in the meditation hall, it's often dropping head. Like, ooh. People just fall off their seats. But that kind of sleepiness and dullness. Now, it's not referring to sleep itself. I mean, if you're asleep, then, that's just kind of like the extreme. Obviously, if you're asleep and you're not meditating, you're not going to be in some kind of samadhi or dhyana state. But that kind of dullness. Another time, which is very common, is when we might have maybe eaten too much. So you'll see this also in the most common time to see it is in the first meditation session after lunch. Now, often in temples and monasteries, after lunch, it's kind of a break time. People sometimes will go have a little nap, for example, and that can be actually beneficial. Not just with the fact that people are waking up very early in the morning, but with a full stomach, changes the body chemistry and blood sugars and whatever. There's this kind of sleepiness and drowsiness. Okay, have a little nap, come back, and you might be a bit more refreshed. But most of us aren't kind of living in that situation. And there's that kind of dullness that you get on like a full stomach. That's another case where we have this kind of sleepiness and dullness. Now, we will later on be talking about some more kind of specific techniques and ways to deal with some of these when we get into, this is just in a couple of weeks, when we get into dealing with regulating the physical body and regulating food and regulating sleep, because all these are kind of connected together. But for now, with this one, the short kind of thing is not to just kind of reject it and realize that, like, okay, that kind of dullness is not a positive, helpful state for meditation. But is also to be very aware of how much sleep we've had. Are we getting enough sleep? And it's not just enough, it's also not too much, because sometimes oversleeping can create a kind of a dullness. But also our food, how much we eat, when we eat, and the quality of the sorts of food that we eat. Some foods just kind of, some people bring about this kind of lethargy and dullness and sleepiness much more than other foods, for example. You can also throw into the category of food other things like sometimes stimulants, because they kind of, like too much coffee, for example, it might, make you too very excited and very awake. But then when it runs out, and then you kind of gets into a dullness. So like if you're used to having coffee in the morning, you drink a lot of coffee, that kind of person, they wake up in the morning, before they've got their coffee, very dull, very sleepy. Boom, just this kind of thing here. So first of all, kind of noticing it, recognizing it as a hindrance, and then also making sure that we're adjusting kind of our lifestyle and these kinds of things to adjust it, but also just to have that firm kind of recognition, like this is a hindrance. This is a hindrance to practice. And it's worth pointing out because sometimes, particularly for beginners, if they don't really know what kind of a clear meditative state is, they might mistake that dullness for thinking that it's some kind of deep samadhi, and it's not. Okay. The third one is also another one that's kind of a pair. It's kind of almost, again, the opposite of this dullness and lethargy, the sleepiness. It is, in our translation here, the hindrance of excitedness and regretfulness. In Chinese, diaoju. So you can see it's kind of interesting, right? When we look at all five of these, the first two are kind of complementary opposites. One is desire, the other is aversion. But while they're kind of opposites, both of them are hindrances. Then these next two are dullness and sleepiness, and then excitedness and regretfulness. I think excitedness, okay, it sounds like kind of the opposite. Regretfulness, like that's, you don't think of regretfulness as the opposite of sleepiness, but I'll get to that in a second. So it gives some examples also of what is meant by excitedness, kind of like maybe an overly stimulated mind. Gives, for example, so physical restlessness. So sometimes it's a bit like the body, and kind of like the energies of the body become very like sort of like overactive. Some people kind of have that. Some people have great difficulties just sitting down and sitting still for a while. Classic example, try to teach meditation to a bunch of 7 or 8, 9-year-olds. And I've literally done this before where, sorry, it's funny to even think, recall, I've got this large group, there's probably like a couple of hundred of these kids. Some of them, it was in a temple, so a lot of their parents were devotees of the temple. Some of the kids were like great, they were sitting there like perfect little meditating bodies out there. Some of them are just literally rolling around on the floor. They just can't, you tell them like sit still, like can't do it. It's just like boredom out of their mind. And you see it kind of in lesser degree, some people kind of this physical agitation, body's always moving, hands shaking or moving, legs tapping, that kind of thing. It comes from that the body isn't calm. There's kind of energies in the body which are not calm and relaxed enough. So, how to deal with that? Again, things like exercise and so on and so forth, and our other general health will be related to these. Another one is verbal excitedness. Again, like a lot of talking, a lot of that kind of stimulation all the time can be, one of the results isn't just talking, but it's also like the inner voice, just kind of the mind's just like very excited, agitated, the jumping monkey mind. Now, this isn't quite the same as desire, okay? I think you can make a definite distinction. Desire is specifically the mind recalling and seeking out pleasurable things. So you're sitting there kind of daydreaming about a little, oh, I want this or I want that, right? But this is just, it's not thinking about something for desire. It just won't stop. It's just agitated, right? Excited, jumping around all the time. Now, another case of this is what is referred to, and he doesn't really go into actually that much detail in the text here. Most of the text is talking about excitedness. But as we said, this term technically also includes, here it is here, sorry, regretfulness. So why is regretfulness a kind of a case of this sort of excitedness of the mind? The idea being that if we've engaged in like unwholesome activities, we've engaged in something we shouldn't be doing, something's a bit dodgy, there might be this kind of like unsettledness in the mind. And you might have it like get into a fight with someone or something, kind of go away and kind of mind's always just like agitated. I mean, it might continue on replaying the argument over and over in your head or whatever, but it can also just be this kind of like, you kind of can't calm down. It's like there's something unresolved here. There's something unresolved, and I need to feel that I can resolve that until I can then kind of like, okay, resolved, that situation's been dealt with, I can now calm myself. Some of the examples given in the text tend to be kind of more specific, like breaking the precepts, doing something kind of like really, really unwholesome and very violent. And there might also be a sense of like worrying about retribution, or maybe somebody's going to come back and get revenge on me, or that kind of thing. And so in that case, it's a bit almost like paranoia. But that's a bit of an extreme case. One of them is some of this restfulness. Again, the mind can't settle because it's worrying about something. The thing that the mind's worrying about it's not desire, it's not aversion, it's not sleepy dullness. It's this kind of uneasiness of the mind. So that's the other kind of case in this, the fourth of the hindrances. And the main solution for dealing with that is, try not to do the things that we're going to regret, basically. So that goes back to right back at the very first class, and the very first of the 5 things to prepare, which is the precepts, right? Make sure our basic precepts, we're not infringing, applying anyone else. If we act in that way, we're just far less likely to have this kind of regretfulness. Now the last one, okay, just moving along and looking at the time as well. The last one is the hindrance of doubt, and it's kind of important to point out when we're referring to doubt here, doesn't just mean any doubt. So if we just read this very first paragraph, so fifth, eliminating the hindrance of doubt. Because doubt covers over the mind, one is unable to develop faith in any dharma. So here dharma is referring to like any teaching on the path. Because one then has no mind of faith, one encounters the Buddha's dharma in vain and gains nothing from it. So in that case, well, maybe let's just continue on. It does give specifically 3 types of doubts. The first one, and this is a big one, is doubt in oneself. And so somebody might take up a meditation practice. And remember, these are not, when we're talking about doubt here as a hindrance, we're talking about doubt as an obstacle and a hindrance towards meditation. So this first situation is when we have doubt in ourselves. So we might get a meditation teaching, we might get it from a teacher, from a class, we might get it reading a book, we might be reading a sutra. Here's this practice, you can try it. But sometimes people have a real lack of self-confidence. They think like, well, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. Like other people can do it, other people are good at this, I'm bad at this. And you can definitely see this sometimes with some beginners. A lot of people before they practice meditation or develop that kind of inner reflectiveness, we all just think it's kind of our minds are just pretty normal. And, my thoughts are my thoughts, and I can control my thoughts. I think what I want to think, and I don't think about what I don't want to think, and so on and so forth. Until we sit down and we start to really watch the mind and see what it does, and realize most of the time that like, oh my goodness, his mind is completely out of control, right? It's like, it's not my mind. It's just all these different mental phenomena going on, and I try to control it, and I just can't control it. And sometimes it can be a bit of a sense of despair, like I can't even control my own mind, like if I can't do that, who am I? If I can't even control my own thoughts, like what can I do? That can be a bit overwhelming for some people. And they might think, and then I read these texts about these people going and meditating and entering the samadhi, and we see somebody else post on Facebook, I went to a lovely retreat and I entered into some deep meditative state and had some wonderful insight. And I think, well, I didn't. Meditation for me was just sitting there with backache and leg ache and crazy thoughts in my head. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, right? I'm not cut out for this. I'm not good enough. Now, this is not to say that meditation is equally easy for anyone, but we've got to keep in mind a couple of basic Dharma principles. Impermanence, not self, which means essentially anything that's possible in the sense of obviously like logical paradoxes aside, but what we are and what we're capable of are all very plastic and moldable. Our own mental states are also very moldable and changeable, so long as we provide the right conditions to mold them in a certain way. And so we need to kind of reflect on that. If we start to think like it's impossible for me to meditate, and developing this view of self that's fixed, like this is me, it's this fixed thing. The definition of me is someone who can't meditate. And that's a self-view in Buddhist terms, right? It's having this very fixed definition. It's like there's this permanent quality that I have called unteachable. Buddhism saying, no, no one has this permanent inability for anything. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it's all possible. Now, we still might have to spend some time and find the appropriate teaching for ourselves, That's also very true. Doesn't mean just like any teaching is going to work equally well. But always got to keep in mind that we always have that potential. And sometimes we see the teaching of like Buddha nature has that emphasis. That anyone and everyone has that potential. Okay, so we can use that contemplation to overcome that doubt. Even the Buddha was originally just a regular person like us. The second one is doubt in one's guru or doubt in one's teacher. One might be taking teachings from a particular teacher. And we might sometimes kind of look at various qualities of the teacher and think like, how can this person be a good teacher? Because, and we might fill in various like criticisms that we have and what have you. Well, as far as this goes, from my own experience, counting lots of different teachers, and not just in the sense of Dharma teachers in general, or meditation teachers, Buddhist studies teachers, different teachers have different strengths and different weaknesses. Let's just kind of keep in mind, don't put the guru too high, don't put them too much on a pedestal, otherwise you're going to be disappointed, right? Most people and most teachers are not perfect, okay? So what we've got to focus on is not so much focus on the weak points, we've got to focus on the strengths. Now, there are also some other issues that are worth looking at. There are certain, now when I talk about weaknesses and strengths, I mean, there's still other things like in general, like good character is always an important factor, right? So a teacher who is violent and abusive, but maybe knows their Dharma teachings and theory well, a case like that, I would be a bit, it's a really hard call, to be honest. You could just say, well, just learn the good stuff that they have. But if somebody's, like abusive or violent, you also got to wonder, like, how effective are these teachings for this person in the first place? But the main thing is not to just kind of like focus on lots of small weaknesses or not perfect points, because we've got to remember, when we're receiving the teachings, we are rely on the Dharma, not on the person. So ifa bu yure. Rely on the person. Rely on the Dharma, not on the person. Ultimately, we're trying to learn the Dharma from them. Secondarily, of course, their own behavior acts as a model for our behavior. But we can also learn from people that don't necessarily know how to, don't perfect that themselves. And I think this applies to lots of things. There's the old adage, those who can do, those who can't teach. I think that's a bit of an extreme as well. But there's some people that can, I'll give an example. When I was much younger and did martial arts, we had one teacher, and he really wasn't, like in terms of flexibility and so on and so forth, he wasn't anything fantastic at all. But he knew what it was supposed to be, and he can guide us and tell us, this is an area you need to work on. You need to work on your back foot balance and your stabilization and your kicks or whatever. He himself couldn't kick like super high, but he could tell us how we could do it so that we could. So in that case, there's still benefit. We're learning the teachings from them and not just saying, well, he can't do it, so why should I bother learning from him? That's the second one, doubt in one's guru. And then the last one is doubt in the Dharma. And this is specifically, I think, here when we're talking about the very teachings that we've got a meditation practice. And I think, well, okay, I want to practice this particular meditation. But if we have a little doubt about that meditation practice, can this practice really work for me? Is this a really good practice? And so on. That will seriously affect our ability to apply ourselves. In this way, this kind of practice is not scientific, but let me just explain what I mean here. One of the ideas in science is like, it doesn't matter if you believe in, say, the principle of gravity, Newtonian physics, the principle of gravity. It doesn't matter whether you believe or not that a heavy object and a light object, and you drop them, are going to fall at exactly the same speed. You might think, well, the heavier object should go faster because it's heavier. Okay, so I don't, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. You can go and do the experiment and see for yourself. Okay. Now, in that case, of course, your doubt and your own mental state is not part of the experiment. But for meditation, it's a bit different because it's like our own mind is the experiment. So if we have doubt or we don't have doubt, we have faith or we have doubt, that is actually influencing the different variables and factors within our experiment. So we can't just say, oh, you should, just totally meditate without any, you don't need any faith or confidence. You can be totally doubtful of the teaching and you'll get the same result. No, you won't, because that doubt is then influencing the mind, which is the very thing we're trying to cultivate in the first place. So I hope I've kind of made this point clear. I kind of do talk about this idea quite often. We do need to have some confidence that that teaching will be of benefit for us. When we have that confidence, then we really apply ourselves, and the more effort, application we put into it, the better the result we'll get out of it. I've seen this a lot, people not really having confidence in a practice, so they kind of do it like a bit half-hearted, kind of a bit half-assed, kind of like, okay, I tried, but it didn't work, you see. And then that becomes a justification for why it's not a good technique in the first place. Meanwhile, somebody else using exactly the same teaching and technique throws themselves into it wholeheartedly, they work on it, they get the results, and go, wow, this practice is really great, it's really beneficial. And the other person's saying it's not beneficial at all. Same practice, what's the difference? That faith or that confidence enabled one to apply themselves. An application is essential. The other person, the doubt, became a hindrance and a blockage. So always keep that in mind. And that's why it's kind of good to always just kind of go in with like, let's give it a try. People have practiced these teachings before. All these teachings, 99% of them have been around for literally hundreds of years, if not a couple of thousand years. People wouldn't be teaching them and passing them on if they were not effective. Right? Some people have really had great success in these. Why shouldn't I give it a try too? Right? So we can kind of encourage ourselves in that way as well. And so I just want to kind of point out that last point in particular, because sometimes people think just like doubt is just like doubt about anything. Or, we have to have faith in the Dharma. It just becomes this like, oh, just Buddhism's all about faith. You just have to believe and you don't have to think about it or reason about it. No, that's taking it to a bit of an extreme. That's not quite what's needed here. Okay, so these are the 5 hindrances, obstacles, coverings to our ability to enter into meditation. The first one is, again, a bit like last week, sensual desire, but here it's in the mental sense. Then aversion, and these two are kind of complementary pair or opposite. Then we have dullness, sleepiness, and excited restlessness. Okay, one is dull, sluggish mind, can't work it. The other is overexcited, out of control mind. And again, these two are kind of like complementary pair or opposites. And then the last one, doubt about our practices. Okay, so those are our 5 hindrances. I'm going to now flip it back out to our the regular camera again. I see we've had somebody else join us here. Okay, we've got Margot. Said good morning. That was a while ago. Sorry, Margot, you joined us half an hour ago. And I can see we've got a few more people who have joined us online. I can see we've got lucky number 13 people have joined us. So those others that have come out there and joined us today, good to see you. You can drop in a message if you like and let us know who you are. Now, it's that time. We're about kind of halfway through the class. We're going to do a little bit of stretching, just a few little stretches again. And then we're going to just do some sitting meditation, same as what we've been doing for every other week. Now, when I do this in a second, again, I'm going to just do a few things with the cameras and change. Hopefully this will work out, so let me just flip over and just get ready. Okay. So, if you remember what we did for our stretches last week and the week before, remember our key things are to hit the main joints, those places that are usually the most problematic for our meditation. So, ankles, knees, hips, that'll help us with our cross-legged posture, a bit for the waist, because particularly the upper back, and having that nice and relaxed but upright, and then also around the shoulders, the chest. Now you might think, well, sitting, why does that matter? Because we want to open up the chest, right? We want to open up the chest and allow our breathing to be fluid, and it will also help to keep our body upright as well. Okay, So really simply, let's just start with the right foot on the ground, hold of the foot, rolling there. And when you're stretching each body part, remember, put your mental focus into that body part. We're already kind of doing the meditation beforehand. Okay, change other way. By putting our focus into that body part and becoming aware, we are engaging in mindfulness of the body. Okay, change foot, left foot. And when we want to, when we're going to meditate, we're bringing our mind from a usual scattered, distracted, externally focused state, and then we want to bring it inside, change direction, and focus on quite a small and specific focused point. That kind of sudden change is very difficult, but it can be good to bring it from the outside and then just bring it to the body as a whole. And then we slowly kind of, rather than going from like scattered mind to immediately sharp focused mind, we go from scattered and just slowly bring it in, slowly bring it in, slowly bring it in. So as we work in these weeks on the breath, we go from scattered mind and then just bring it into the whole of the body, and we're going to work into the area where the body breathes, and then we're going to start to bring it into a sharper focus. Okay, that was the ankles. Next one for the knees. So you can put your hands on your knees and just do little circles with your knees like that. Okay, put your focus into your knees. Okay, back the other way. Okay, and then make sure I get enough space behind me there. And feet together, hands on the knees, and we can squat down. Ooh, sorry, I'm always losing my balance because I'm afraid what's behind me there. Stretching back, opening up the backs of the legs, and we can squat down. And back. Back. Okay, just coming up. Give the legs a little shake. Relaxing the knees and ankles. And then we're going to go up to the hips and waist. So feet slightly apart, hands on the hips and waist. We can do circles. Back the other way. Okay. Up to the chest. Now I have to move over to the side because my seating space is limited. Okay, feet together, hands joined in front of the chest, inhaling, stretching up, opening up the chest there, and then exhaling, coming down, opening up the spine, stretching the backs of the legs, breathing out, inhaling, coming up, open up the chest, breathing all the way in, and then down, breathing out. Coming out, breathing in. I'm a bit stiff in the old legs this morning. And then come down, breathing out. And last one, back up. Begin opening up the chest. And then down, relax. Okay. Maybe we'll just do one more for the head and neck. It's also an important area. Sometimes people can get a bit of stiffness, discomfort around the neck. So we'll just stretch to the left, stretching the right side of the neck. Again, put your focus into that area up. And stretching over to the right, stretching the left side of your neck. Put your focus there. Change to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the center. And we're just going to go down. Just bring your chin down onto your top of your chest here if you can. Stretching up. Now here you want to kind of point your chin up. If you can imagine that. Down. And up. And down. And up. Okay. There we are. Hopefully that's a bit more comfortable for you now. Okay, let's get into our sitting meditation. I'm just going to change my camera settings again. Hopefully this should work. Okay. Okay, now today as we just do the sitting meditation, I would like to explain very briefly the sitting posture. Now we will, in a later week, talk about the posture in much more detail when we get into the topic of what's called regulating the body. There's like 5 of them. Regulating food, sleep, the body, breath, and the mind. Okay, another set of 5. Right, the whole text. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So we'll talk about that in more detail now, but because we're doing a bit of sitting meditation every week, I do need to talk about this a little bit. Okay, so when it comes to sitting meditation, the text itself talks about a very classic position known as the Vairochana 7-point meditation posture. Now, this means that when it comes, it's a sitting meditation posture, and when you sit and you want to make sure that your posture is correct, there are 7 key points that you need to focus on. Okay, now just very, very briefly. The first one is the legs and the position of the legs. Second one is like the kind of the hips and the lower back. Third one is the position of the hands. Here or here, there's all sorts of different positions. So that's the third. Fourth is in the chest, kind of open and full. Fifth is the head up straight, the neck, head and neck up straight. Sixth, the chin tucked in, and the position of the tongue on the palate, behind the top front teeth. And then the last one is the eyes. Gaze is lowered about 45 degrees, either eyes slightly open or gently closed. Those are the 7 points. Now, as I'm sitting now, I'm sitting in what's usually called half lotus. I hope you can see that clearly. So I've got this is my left foot up on top, and I've got my other foot, my right foot, on the bottom, but kind of drawn in close. And then this foot's on top. Now, this is obviously not the only way to sit. There are lots of other positions with the legs, but the point I want to make now is all of the different meditation posture, the only difference is in the position of the legs at point 1 of those 7 points. Everything else from your back and hips, and then your hands, your chest, your neck, jaw and mouth and eyes, they are all the same, okay? So today I just want to talk very briefly about some of the different postures of the feet. So probably one of the simplest ones, of course, that you can do is to sit on a chair. So if you've got difficulties with your legs, especially your knees, you can totally just sit on a chair. Now, if you do that though, try to make sure that, and this goes for any position, that your knees, position of your knees, are slightly lower than the position of your hips. You don't want to, so your chin needs to be high enough. If your chair's too low, and then your knees are up high, what happens, the same, when your knees are up high, higher than your hips, it will make your lower back, your hips roll back because your whole body's kind of like tilting back like that. Okay, so that's the first one you can do. Just sitting, and so your thighs are kind of either parallel with the floor or sloping slightly down towards the knees. That's one posture. Second posture you can do is the easy posture. In Chinese, or sanpan. Here, both of your feet are down. One foot is kind of close into your body, and the other foot is in front of it. So it's kind of like one in front of the other. They're not on top. They're not crossing at all. It's one's in close, one's a bit further out in front. It doesn't matter which way. You can go left in front, right at the back. Now, it's quite an easy posture, and it is. It's very comfortable. This is a totally underrated position, is all I can say. One of the reasons it's underrated is because you don't have one foot on top of the other, then you don't get that pressure. A lot of people get that pressure, like either their foot up too high and it twists the ankle and causes pain in your ankle here, or if your ankles cross over and one's pushing on the other one and cutting off the bloodstream. So for a lot of people, that can be very uncomfortable. So one in front of the other, nice and comfy. Ideally, you want to kind of get your knees out a bit wider. And again, your knees out a bit wider can help to kind of roll your hips forward. So this is the easy posture. Another one is commonly called the half lotus. You've got, again, one foot's drawn in close, You really kind of want the heel and close into your groin. And then the other foot goes up on the opposite thigh. Now this can look very different. And the way I look when I sit like this is probably look a bit different to most people. Most people are going to end up a bit more with this foot up almost on the knee like that. And then up on the knee, then the other foot's under the other knee or under the other lower leg, which makes the leg that's on top, the knee's a bit higher. So one knee's higher, one knee's lower. That knee that's higher and one lower is going to kind of rock our pelvis. We're not going to be balanced, we're going to be tilted. And a high knee is also going to make us tilt back a bit as well. It's going to be hard to get the lower back up straight. So the leg that's on the bottom, I recommend you pull it in really close to your groin, like your heel is right under your groin. And then the other one is, the other foot's partly on the thigh, but it's almost on this gap between your thigh and your lower leg, just tucked in place there like that. And I hope you can see that. Maybe I can move back a little bit more. It might come out slightly better on the screen. So this is the half lotus. Okay, and you can go either way, either one on top or on the bottom. Again, sometimes some people ideally want both of your knees like flat on the ground. And as you can see, I've got a little cushion under my butt. So having the cushion under my butt means my hips are slightly higher than my knees. My pelvis will roll forward. I'd sit up straight better. If my butt is flat on the floor and my knees are high, if I end up kind of like this, like a little kid sitting on the mat at school, so my knees are up high, it makes my lower back rock. It's hard to sit up straight. Okay. Then, well, I should have actually mentioned this earlier, just like so-called cross-legged. So both of your feet are underneath and your knees are up high. You can kind of do this. I don't actually think this is such a good posture, to be honest. I think you're probably better off sitting on a chair with your knees lower. Because here the knees are so high that, as I said, the hips, it's hard to sit up straight here. You have to really kind of force it. Okay. More ideally, though, is the so-called full lotus. You take one foot, put it up on the opposite thigh. Again, you want to draw it really close to your groin, not like up by your knee, but nice and close in the center, and then the other foot up on the other side. If you get it right, you're locking at your ankles. The ankles are going to lock each other in place. Now, the reason why this is a good posture is that with both feet on the top, your knees go down. With your knees lower, it means that your hips will naturally roll forward more and you'll have a straighter back. But of course, one of the difficulties for a lot of people is that that pressure on your ankles might create some discomfort. Okay. So for now, I want you to just take whichever of these postures is most comfortable for you. Okay, whichever one is most comfortable for you. And it's very important that your practice is comfortable for you, not a competition with someone else. And we're just going to sit for a bit. Okay, as I said, in later weeks, we're going to talk more about some of the other elements of the meditation posture. But for now, just talk about this. In general, try to sit up straight. Okay. So we're just going to sit here. You can just sit up straight for now. Keep that posture. You can, if you've already got your own practice, of course, you can just continue with your regular practice. But if you want to just kind of keep in the theme of today looking at the 5 hindrances, it's worth just sitting here and then reflecting on our own state of mind. What's my state of mind this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are? Is my mind desirous state of mind, aversion state of mind, sleepy, dull state of mind, agitated, excited state of mind, doubtful state of mind? We need to identify the problem, the hindrance, before we can then do something about it. Reflect on the drawbacks of the state, if you have these. Like, this is an obstacle to my practice. Why do I have this state of mind? What do I need to do in order to overcome this hindrance so that I can then progress with my deeper meditation? So that's what we're going to do for a bit. We're just going to have a very short little sitting session. So get comfy. I think I'm just going to go back here for now. I'm sitting more regularly at half lotus these days. Still very comfy. So we're just going to sit for about 15 minutes. If you yourself have got glasses on, you've got watches, cell phones, or whatever. Turn all those things off, take them off, put them to the side. I'm going to keep my glasses on. I need to because I need to keep track of the time. Otherwise, we might be sitting for far too long. Okay. So, find your posture and let us begin. So first, just make sure your sitting posture is right and comfortable. You can take a couple of deep, full breaths. Just relax your body and fine-tune your posture. As we maintain correct posture, upright, alert, but relaxed. We can reflect on our own state of mind. See if we have the presence or the absence of the different types of sensual desire or the other hindrances, such as aversion, dullness, sleepiness, agitated excitedness, or doubt with regard to ourselves, our teacher, or the teaching itself, the practice that we're engaging in. You can check your posture every now and then. So most importantly, making sure that body is both relaxed but also upright. That will help keep the mind awake and alert and free from that dullness. And it's okay to adjust your posture. Don't think that you have to be unmoving and become very stiff and tense. Relaxed body also helps calm the mind, and that in turn helps to generate that reflective awareness. So as we sit, we can reflect upon presence or absence of 5 sensory desires, the 5 hindrances. Note them and endeavour to eliminate them from our mental state, as they are hindrances to developing concentration, meditation. You can check your posture, make sure that the body is both relaxed but also upright, awake and alert. Nice deep full breath in. Slowly exhale all the way out. Just gently rock the upper body, left and right. Moving slowly from a very calm, not moving state back to moving. Bring our awareness back to the physical body. You can roll your shoulders, stretch your neck and head. Place our palms of our hands together and just rub them with warmth. Cover over the eyes and eye sockets. Massage gently. The forehead, temples, cheeks, jaw, earlobes, the top to bottom. Pull on the earlobes. This is actually a good potential remedy for dullness and sleepiness. Squeeze those earlobes. Okay. Warm up the palms again. Back of the head, shoulders, arms, chest, stomach and abdomen. And warm up the hands again. In the lower back. Not sure where you are all at when you are watching this class, but I'm in Taiwan, it's not too cold. Just try to keep your body warm when you're meditating. Don't want to expose it to particularly like your knee joints. No, you can also unfold your legs. You can pull up your leg, massage the calves if you like, particularly if you have stiffness. You can turn, rotate the ankle. Okay, change side. Now when you do finish, but most experienced meditators won't sort of get any, won't have your legs go to sleep on them. But if you do, just get up slowly. Wait till the feeling comes back and the legs don't jump up when your legs aren't sort of connected to the rest of your body. That might not be a very happy result. Okay. So hopefully you're feeling a bit better now. Okay, in a second, I'm just going to move forward. I'm going to adjust the camera a bit and we can have a bit of Q&A time, just the last 15 minutes of class. So while I move forward, if you've got any questions or anything you want to say, just drop it in the old comment box there on Facebook and I'll get to you in a second. Oh, I'm sorry. We just make some tiny adjustments here with the camera. Okay. Okay, how are you all feeling, everyone? Okay. You're feeling nice and comfy. I'm just going to raise up that camera a little bit higher, perhaps. Okay. Okay, I see there's a couple of comments in there. Maybe if you've got any questions, anything you'd like to say, while you're typing it in, I'm just going to go through and see the comments that I've missed in the last little while. Okay, we've got Justin tuning in there from New York. I'm assuming you're still in New York. It's great to see your voice and hear your voice. See your face and hear your voice. I wish I could see you too, and I hope you're doing well there in New York. For those of you that don't know Justin, probably many of you, Justin's still training to be a nurse. So as a nurse in New York right now, just stay safe, and we're all thinking of you and hoping that you're safe and doing what you need to do to help others, because that's such an important task right now. So stay safe, Justin. We're thinking about you, okay? Okay, coming from Mika, I have a system for sitting meditation, but many of the usual instruction do not work for me because my legs are too thick. Often I use a chair. Yeah, sure, you can just use a chair. It's not a problem at all. As I said, the position of the legs isn't the key thing. It's really from your hips and then the upper body working up like that. So that's the key point. And from Ariella there, thank you very much, and good night from USA. Okay, yeah, it must be pretty late where you are. You're kind of fairly eastern US, aren't you? So sorry to keep you up too late. I hope that little meditation has set you into a nice, calm state of mind, and you can have a good night's sleep, and perhaps we'll see you again next week. Okay. Still got quite a few people online there, so I don't know if you've got any queries or questions or anything you'd like to say, whether it's about today's content, so talking about the 5 hindrances, or practice in general, or anything else. Feel free to throw your comments in there and we can have a bit of discussion. And for those of you, I see we've still got quite a few people online there, so for those of you that haven't put a message in, drop your name in the box here. I'd like to see who we've got. Okay, we've got another comment here from Justin. Do you have any suggestions on how to modify meditation exercise for seniors? I've been providing psychotherapy for seniors who are experiencing isolation and anxiety. I've introduced short breathing, focused meditations, tried a bit of loving kindness meditation with them, but they're struggling with the posture. Yeah, sure. That posture is a big one. I have had a bit of meditation. For quite a few years I did meditation classes in the temple in Elan there, and to be honest, most of the people in the class are seniors, quite old, but they're a bit different from the people that you're talking about there, Justin, because they're all long-term Dharma practitioners. So I think they're quite most of them are quite used to the posture. But if you're talking about people who aren't kind of regular meditators, that posture is a big one. So the first thing would be find a comfortable chair. Just find a comfortable, regular chair, a chair that's got a back on it. Now, and probably the most critical thing is the height. As I said, it's the height. So when you're sitting on the chair, you don't want to, I recommend having a chair with the back on it. You don't want to lean on the back. The back of the chair is just in case you do need it. You want to kind of sit, if you can, towards the front of the chair. So they normally say like your buttocks are on the front kind of third of the chair, so that then, and you want that height so that your knees can be slightly lower than like up by your hips. So it kind of needs just, I guess that means the height of the chair is just slightly higher than like the length of your like shins and feet, so your knees are kind of slightly lower down. The reason for that is that helps to let your hips roll forward. If it's too low and your knees are up high, then your hips will kind of roll back and your back will slouch. So that's just adjusting, the height of things to naturally bring about a better posture. Okay, but still, of course, for seniors, that still might be difficult. And if they've got lower back problem as well as like leg problem, then what I think is quite nice is just a small cushion, and you just kind of stuff it kind of in the lower back area, so that kind of arch of the back, put it in between there and the back of the seat. So it will kind of, you got to have like your buttocks are like further back, but then the cushion's in your lower back, so it will help to get a bit more of that natural curvature of back rather than slouching over. Okay, but then you're not leaning the whole back, sort of like your upper back on the back of the chair, if possible. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, of course, is to not even sit at all, and you can totally do meditation lying down. If that's the case, I recommend Savasana, so the good old corpse pose, not the happiest name. So you're lying flat on your back, your feet are kind of slightly apart, and your hands are by your side, and it should be very relaxed. Now, you also do need to pay a bit of attention to the position of the head and neck, and I wouldn't use a pillow. Have the head just flat on the floor there, but kind of pull the back of the head back so that the chin's tucked in a bit. We'll kind of stretch out and elongate the spine a bit. Now, of course, it's very comfortable. Almost anyone can do that, but, of course, you've always got the danger of that lying posture of off to sleep. Okay, so I don't know what time of the day you take those classes there, Justin, but yeah, you might have to go, and also your resources. Do you have the space for it? Is it possible to have everyone lying on the floor? Okay. So that's the physical side. Introduce short breathing focused meditation. Yep, can be good. Tried a bit of loving kindness meditation. That would be great, particularly as you say if they're dealing with isolation and anxiety. Those are all going to be good for that. But I hope what I've just mentioned there can help maybe with the posture of it. Okay, I've got another comment here from Tina. When a shift of mind happens sometimes, the rest of meditation is followed by sleep. How to deal with this kind of hindrance caused by relaxation of the body and mind? Yeah, so this is a bit of a kind of a trick that, and as we were meditating just then, I'm saying, make sure your body's relaxed, but upright and alert. And that's a kind of there's kind of a sweet spot there, and it's not necessarily that easy to do. For a lot of people, when they relax, it's natural to go to sleep. And when they become alert, it's kind of like I don't know, maybe it's like small animals out on the plains, alert, keeping their eyes out for marauding lions and tigers. It's not that kind of adrenaline-filled alert, like, that it's relaxed, but it's also like mentally alert, but physically very relaxed. Now, that can be a bit difficult. I think if you're finding that when you enter into a relaxed state, you're going to sleep, my immediate thought would be, are you sure you're getting enough sleep normally? If our body needs sleep, then yeah, you give it that time to relax. Boom, it'll go sleepy time. So make sure you're getting enough sleep in general. That's one of the first things. And what I sometimes find is like on, say, retreats, for example, if you're doing like a long retreat, you do a 7-day retreat, often the first day and you're doing relaxing meditation, get 10 people to lie down, bam, they go to sleep. And I let them. If it really is the case that you just need sleep, if you need sleep more than meditation, then sleep first, get enough sleep, then come back and meditate. Right? Sometimes. Okay. It's like if you need it, if you're not getting enough. Okay. So how to deal with this kind of hindrance caused by relaxation of the body and the mind. So I think it's probably because your body needs it. But once it's got enough sleep, and then again, your body is adjusted so that you can sit like in that good posture, and your posture is nice and upright, but you're not tense, then that really alert and aware posture will help you keep you awake. Right? I find if I sit up nice and straight like this, I do feel more alert than if I kind of slouch over, lean over on something. It just, the body's, it's kind of it's a two-way thing. If your body's more, if your mind and body's more alert, it will kind of take an alert posture. But you can have the same effect. You can deliberately take an alert posture, which will then induce that same state of the body and mind. So it's kind of an interesting thing that the inner state and then the outer state of the body, it's not a one-way thing. It's not just the inner state, then it's manifested in the body. You can deliberately change your physical posture in order to bring that about. So then try to work on that good posture. Another thing to do, we will be talking about this in a few more weeks, is like your eyes is another big one. So when you're meditating and you feel sleepiness, don't close your eyes, have them partly open. Another thing, slightly related to the eyes, but also the space. If you're meditating in a very small and confined space, the mind kind of gets like compressed, right? In that case, if you still can't meditate outside, if you can meditate with an open window, hopefully that kind of looks out into some like open space. That kind of openness of the space also makes the mind more open, clear and awake than a confined space. Okay. Better still, if you can meditate outside, you want to also check things like fresh air, make sure you're getting enough fresh air. If it's not fresh, if it's stuffy air, too much carbon dioxide changes yeah, it's carbon dioxide in the blood as well that will also make you drowsy and sleepy, right? So there's a couple of other things, and also food as well. So, key principle of the Dharma and Buddhism, dependent originations, multiple different causes and conditions come together to bring about different sort of results. So there's lots of different factors that are involved. We can try to optimize them all, but if there's one in particular that's really not well prepared, it can have a big effect on the other ones. So we need to pay attention to a number of things, not sort of like just one solution. Okay, there's another question here by Margot, how to deal with lethargy and sleepiness. I think kind of what I maybe just said there, maybe it's pretty similar there to Tina's question. I hope what I've just said there, Margot, can also help with that kind of issue as well. And like I said, we will be talking about that a little bit later. We have done preparing 5 preconditions, renouncing the 5 desires, eliminating the 5 hindrances. The next thing we're going to hit is regulating 5 things. Okay, food, sleep, body, breath, and mind. And these in turn will also have influence on other things like lethargy and sleepiness, agitated restlessness of mind, and so on and so forth. So just a few comments for today about those issues, and then we're going to be looking at them in more detail as we go in the next few weeks. Okay, now I see on the clock there, the time says it's 10:30 on my time. I don't know what time it is where you are. It's been good to see you. I don't know why before I could never see how many people were like online. I don't know why. I can now. So I can see that we've had lucky number 13 for most of the class. I hope that on your end, the experience side, the new hardware setup, and then the change of the scenes has made it a bit more of an enjoyable experience for you. Again, if you've got any other comments, thoughts, please let me know. You can put them in the thread here. You can message either myself or on the Body Tree Buddhism community page. If you've liked the classes, share them with your friends. As you know, we've got another class coming up next week. We'll be putting out a notification that we're going to go live. Share it with your friends. The more people we can come on in, get some bit of discussion going, share our experiences, the better for everyone, right? Meditation and our Dharma practice shouldn't be this kind of thing we do alone, right? It also it's something that we do also with other people, just like anything else within our daily life. Okay, comment there from Chantal. Thank you for the lovely course. This is not the course, Chantal. This is just one class. This is week 3. So we've still another 5 weeks to go. So keep on coming back. I don't know what time it is for you in Vancouver. Probably pretty late on a Friday night. So thanks for spending your Friday night with us. And enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Okay, I'll be signing out. Okay, and a little thank you there from the Kalyana Meditation Center. That's the group there in Philippines. It's good to see all you joining us too. Okay, I'm going to be signing out, everyone. And then the video, of course, will be going up on the group page. I'm making some, what are they? Albums, I guess, video albums there, putting all this course into like an album of its own, just some information. And I'm definitely thinking about doing a bunch of other short, non-live, pre-recorded little posts as well. So I might record some of them, like video recording, talking about a couple of different topics in Buddhism. I might do some in text and share some other documents as well. So just try to put up a bit more material, try to make this some more resources here on the Bodhi Tree page. And if you've got anything you'd like to see or anything you'd like to know about, okay, it can be totally unrelated to this class today, just let me know and I'll try to put that into the schedule of things to work on and share with everyone. Okay, that's enough from me. It's good to see all of you wherever you are. Take care, stay safe. It's kind of pretty crazy, troubled times that we live in. It's good that you can all spend the time to work on your own inner state. And now we're going to head on out and do what we also need to do for the rest of the community around us and the rest of the world. So, pleasure to see you all. Take care.